Okay, hi, it's Gemma, and I thought only appropriate that I start talking about the world of Dragon's Dogma in the place where it all starts. And I don't mean at the very beginning of the game where you're playing as Savan and you're kind of thrust in the middle of combat and don't really know what the heck's going on or anything like that. And I think that's intended. Um, I think that's intended to convey that this is an endless struggle, and that's something that you don't really realize right out of the gate. Not at all. It's kind of like let's throw you into the middle of this, and you're doing some combat, and you're like, okay, and then your story starts. So it starts here in Cassardus, and a dragon comes. He's born out of the rift, um, or out of the sky. He comes and he attacks your village. Um, Everybody seems to be panicked, and you pick up arms and you slay him, or well, you attempt to slay him, and instead he takes your heart. And from then on, your quest is to try to find your heart. But there are other things that are going on in your world aside from that. That's your overarching quest, is to get your heart back. But there are other things that are going on in your world that then give you a sense, or should give you a sense, that this is something that's gone on over and over again. Um, this sort of struggle, um, this uh, dragon coming, and that comes to this world that we're in. Um, and I think that's kind of important. And everything that I'm gonna say is like my opinion, my thoughts, what I've learned over the years playing this game and what's pulled me back to it time and time again. Just not the combat is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I love the combat, but I'm also fascinated by the world that we live in when we're in this game, um, and the various places that we go to, and how that information is conveyed to us if you pay attention. So you start here in Cassardus, and then eventually, over time, you get enough power, and by that I mean power, um, to be able to transport at will to where you need to go. But I do believe it's intended that you have to walk everywhere at first. I do believe that's intended because if they wanted you to be able to teleport instantly, they would have given the director and devs would have given you that right out of the gate, and instead you're trudging everywhere at first, which is something people have complained about, um, about the game. But I think it's intended, that allows you to fully explore your world. So after doing a few quests and things, you have to go to Grand Soren. And in my world right now, I'm post dragon, so spoiler alert, too late now. Um, you have to walk there. Now I can teleport there because I have enough power, if you will, skill to get there. And you're tasked with a couple of things here. They're almost like tutorials. First of all, you find out that you have a power, and you have the power to raise people from the dead with wake stones, and you do that here. And you learn that the Arisen has that power to do that, to take three shards, three wake stone shards, put them together to make a whole, and you can raise people from the dead. So you learn that power, and I apologize for my cat being a jerk because he knows I'm talking to the game. And he's Siamese, and that's what he does. So I apologize for that. This is his time of day to do that. Um, and you also find out about a lot of other things that are afoot here. You've got politics and you've got religion, that's going on, all centered somewhat around the dragon. So you you meet a guy named Mason. He's actually sent here from the mainland, and that's how you learn that over time, of course. So that's how you know you're on a peninsula, and you have other countries that are in treaty with. your country of Grancis or your peninsula, but Grancis being sort of your country, and you have Malor, which is where Eleanor is from. That's the wife of the Duke. You have Voldoa, which is where Lord Julian is from, and you have Hearthstone, which is where Sir Mercedes is from. So they're even when you walk into court, you see that they're on opposing sides of the aisle. So visually, you're given a clue that they are kind of in opposition to one another. Sir Mercedes, though, is quite obtuse politically. She just wants to be a knight and lead sort of a grand quest. She really wants to do that. She doesn't know why she's been sent here, really, because she begged her father, please send me. And her father was like, yeah, that's fine, because he just sends sort of a token force. And Lord Julian is quite powerful. I believe he's the son of the ruler of Voldoa, so he understands what's going on here. Um, and also you have the faith, and they have a subplot going on with a nihilistic cult called Salvation, that's kind of an end of the world types. And so you have all of these things going on, but your world is older than you realize. And let me show you some of the places that are quite older than you realize. Then we can talk about them as well. So, one of the first places that you're tasked to visit, and I recommend that you visit first before you do anything else, it's one of the first quests you're given when you come to Grand Soren after you go down into the Everfall and figure out what's causing a disturbance. And that we'll talk about later too. So I can get easily sidetracked, so, forgive me. Da, 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 da. Where is my port crystal for that place? There it is. So to find out about who you are and what your larger quest is, aside from all of these other things that are going on in your world, you come and visit a place which struck me right from the start. And again, I've read a lot of Roman
There's something
mythology, Greek
drawn on the hill.
mythology, Celtic mythologies. I've watched a lot of um, because it fascinates me. Probably things that people found boring, but where there are places in Great Britain where there's figures in limestone
What's that?
on the hills. One is a big man, one is a white horse, and I thought that was just so fascinating. And there are places in Great Britain and France and really kind of all over Europe, but mostly really well preserved places in Great Britain and Ireland um, that are Neolithic. And here's even one that, even from this point of view, you go, oh, like Stonehenge. Yeah, kind of, right? I mean, these are standing stones. There's, two pylons. There's kind of that whole system here. But what really struck me again was there's a man carved into the side of the hill. And then there is this Neolithic structure here. It struck me as very Neolithic. And you have to go down into it to talk to the Dragon Forged. And then he's going to give you information about what an Arisen is. And he seems to know the most. Like his knowledge goes back. And it's also implied that he did fight a dragon. His spear broke, and so then he reached in with his hands, and his hands were dragon forged. They're black, and he's got a pawn, looks just like him. His post dragon, all that's left is his pawn. But we go down in here, and there is a story on the stone walls, which is very Neolithic in my mind. There's a lot of figures here. Now, I'm on my PlayStation 4, so I don't have like the really cool graphics and things, but But let's ignore that because we're talking really about the story. And if you go up to certain places, I don't want to gather. Let me just examine. Oh, come on. I don't want to talk to the pawns. There we go. It will tell you the dragon's soul dwells air within the Arisen's breast. All right, and so then as you kind of proceed around here, and from here, what I see, and I might be using my imagination a lot, but um, when my light hits that just right, it looks like the dragon forged in both of his arms, right there at the spear tip. That's what that looks like to me. But you know, that's me. Um, and what we see, he's not here anymore, but we see his tools, we see his helm, we see his spear. Um, it doesn't look dragon forged to me, not that our weapons do, but you know, there it is. And then if we got to go over to, there's another one here as well. Um, when we go down here, I believe, is where you can also, oh, come on, let me examine it. No, golly. It's going to make me pick stuff up, so I'll pick everything up. Because alright, gather, Lord. Alright, there we go. Examine. I got to get right in the right spot. Seek the spear aimed at the hilltop sky. Um, and which then points you to some special daggers. But then if you look here, it's really hard to see. Let's see if I can get it fairly well. Um, there you can kind of see him. So there's the dragon on the right, and there he is on the left with a spear, and it looks like a shield, and he's deflecting, the dragon's flames, and he's aiming his spear at the dragon. So kind of telling his story in stone, which is, again, very Neolithic. You see a lot of these swirls and waves in this carved in the stone. Reminds me very much of, and I wish I could remember the name of the place, but there is a place. Uh, I'll get it. It's coming to me. Newgrange in Ireland with a lot of these swirls which tell time. That's what it's believed to tell in Newgrange, that the swirls tell time, and using sort of the sun. And I believe that's kind of a reference, again, my opinion, to that. Some of these are jumbled about so that it almost appears like you see like the dragon in them, but not quite there yet. He hasn't gotten it quite where he wants it. But yeah, so yeah, you can see all these swirls here. Are they telling time? That's what I think. So I made a reference to the faith. Leave out of here. There is an older spot here, older spots. There's actually 3 of them, and I'm going to get to that next. You've all been there. You're all aware of them, and we're going to talk about those places as well. So the faith and the old gods next.